Now let us know what is meant by standing state and standing crop. The amount of nutrients such as nitrogen, phosphorus, and calcium present in the soil at any given time is taken as standing state. Likewise, let's know what is standing crop. The total biomass of an ecosystem at a given time is known as standing crop. What is the meaning of total biomass? The amount of substance present in the plants in an area, in a forest area, for example. The amount of organic matter present in those plants together, if we take up the total biomass, that gives us the standing crop of that ecosystem at that time. Now let us take up functions of ecosystem. There are three main functions of ecosystem: productivity and decomposition, energy flow, nutrient cycle. Now let us go through this. We have seen the definitions of standing crop and standing state. Functions of ecosystem we are going to take up now: productivity and decomposition, energy flow, and nutrient cycle. First, productivity. How we define it? The rate at which the plants produce organic matter or biomass is called as productivity. That is, the plants take up the sun's energy, solar energy, carbon dioxide and water, and through photosynthesis they generate the organic matter in them, carbohydrates they synthesize, and the rate at which these organic matter are made by the plants, okay, which remain as the biomass of these plants, is known as productivity. Then, what is primary productivity? Let us take up. The rate at which producers convert solar energy into food through photosynthesis is known as primary productivity. So, let us take up now what is the secondary productivity. Now we have seen whatever organic matter is there produced by photosynthesis in the plants is the primary productivity of the plants. Okay. Then the rate of increase in the biomass of consumers per unit area is known as second productivity. That means when the consumers, the animals which feed on the plants, they derive their food from the plants and they utilize that for their energy and for the growth and building up of the body tissues, and they grow and their size increases and their biomass increases, and that is what we take it as the secondary productivity. Net primary productivity, or NPP we call it, that is nothing but gross primary productivity minus rate of loss of energy in metabolism and maintenance. So net primary productivity, that means whatever amount of the organic substance is prepared by the plant, by the producers, that total sum of the amount of the carbohydrates and other organic matter prepared is taken as gross primary productivity, and from that we are minusing, we are subtracting some amount of energy which is lost during metabolism and maintenance, because plants also utilize some of the food for respiration and other metabolic activities in the plant for growth, etc. So that's why the net productivity, net primary productivity can be the total gross primary productivity minus the loss of energy in the form of respiration or excretion or any metabolism and maintenance of the plant body. So that's how we get the net primary productivity. If we take up the net primary productivity, highest net primary productivity is seen in tropical rainforest and lowest is in the desert ecosystem. Can you suggest why? This is so. What's the reason that it's lowest in the desert ecosystem? It's because in desert ecosystem, the vegetation is very, very less, and therefore the net primary productivity will be less. Now, decomposition, another function of the ecosystem, very important one, is the decomposition, because decomposition means breakdown of the dead organic matter, plant and animal matter. After death, it will be decomposed and valuable nutrients will be returned back to the soil, and which is again used up by the growing plants, the producers. So therefore, decomposers are very important to see that the plants keep growing and the ecosystem is maintained. So decomposers are mainly the bacteria and the fungi. Okay, so that's why the decomposition is the process of breakdown of complex organic matter in dead organisms into simple inorganic material. As you see here, large number of fungi are decomposing the dead part of the wooden log there, or the organic matter. So that is how the dead material will be decomposed by the fungi and bacteria. Now, another function is energy flow. It is nothing but the flow of energy through the food chain. How the energy is flowing? It is mainly in the form of food. One organism is dependent on other organism for food, and it is again eaten up by another organism. So like this, in a food chain, these organisms are linked together for their food. So in the form of food, the energy is being transferred from one trophic level to another trophic level. Solar energy, or the sun's energy from the sun, it is first converted to chemical energy or food by the photosynthetic plants, by the producers. Okay, and the producers then pass on this food, the form of energy, to the other higher trophic levels in a food chain. Flow of energy follow the laws of thermodynamics. What are these? There are two laws of thermodynamics which are applicable to the functioning of the ecosystem, that is energy flow. The first law says that energy can neither be created nor be destroyed, but can be transformed from one state or one form to another. That is very true, because we cannot generate energy, we cannot create energy from anywhere. We can just transform one form of energy or one state of energy into the another. Take for example sunlight. Sunlight, the radiations coming from the sun, carries a lot of energy, and that energy, the photonic energy or the solar energy present in the sunlight, is taken up by the plants, and that is used to make the bonds between the carbon-carbon and carbon-hydrogen-oxygen elements, and that's how the plants are able to convert water and carbon dioxide into carbohydrates or the organic matter or food. So food is another transformed form of the energy, and this food is again utilized by the herbivores or the animals which are feeding on the plants, and they get energy from them. So like this, the energy goes on transforming from one form to another form. It cannot be destroyed also. It will remain in this atmosphere on this earth in the form of biomass of the living organisms, in the form of heat in the atmosphere. Okay, so that's how energy can neither be created nor be destroyed. Second law says that every transformation of energy is accompanied by its dispersion. So then when the energy is being transformed from one organism to another organism, some amount of it is dispersed or it is released into the atmosphere. You might have experienced if you have entered in a hall which is completely full of people inside. Large number of people have gathered it there, and when you get inside, you feel that the condition inside, the temperature of the room is more. You feel hot or warm condition inside, whereas outside it is not so. Why it is so? Because from our bodies also, heat is being dispersed into the surroundings. Okay, so during the metabolic activities, we also produce some amount of heat. You can feel your breath. When you feel your breath, you will see that it's warm. So that means some amount of heat energy you are releasing out into the atmosphere. So likewise, when the energy is transferred from one organism to another organism in the form of food, some of it is uh, dispersed or it is released into the atmosphere as the heat. Now let us take up the flow of energy with this diagram, ray diagram. From the sun, solar energy is taken up by the producers, which are autotrophic in nature, as well as the phytoplankton in the aquatic ecosystem, which are also photosynthetic in nature. So they produce the food, and that food is consumed by primary consumers, herbivores, protozoans, mollusks, crustaceans, fish, insects, ruminants. Ruminants means the grazing animals, cows and buffaloes, and then rodents. So all these are deriving their food from the producers. That means the energy is transformed from the producers to the primary consumers in the form of food, and some amount of energy is lost as heat or in the form of the respiration and excretion. Some amount of energy is lost. So likewise, from the primary consumers, the energy is passed on to the secondary consumers or primary carnivores, wolf, frog and fish, and from the primary carnivore goes to the secondary carnivore, that is tertiary consumer like lion, snakes, etc. And then all these, you see that in between every two trophic levels, there is a loss of energy in the form of the heat, in the form of respiration and excretion. So now, when all these die out, producers, primary consumers, then the carnivores, when they die out and their bodies are acted upon by bacteria and fungi, decomposition takes place. And during decomposition also, what we see is the organic matter is completely broken down by these fungi and bacteria to get energy for their survival, and at the same time, large number of mineral nutrients are released into the soil, and these raw materials, organic and inorganic salts in the soil, will again help the producers to grow. So that means the energy, solar energy, is ultimately here converted into the organic and inorganic salts. So the solar energy cannot be recycled. We cannot get back the solar energy. It gets transformed into some other form. So that is how the energy flow is taking place. That's why the flow of energy is unidirectional. As we see, from producers to herbivore, herbivore to carnivore, it moves in one direction, not in opposite direction. And the most energy which is flowing through the successive trophic levels which we observe, that energy gradually goes on decreasing. A large amount of energy will be there in the producers, and as we go up along the food chain, the amount of energy available will be less and less. Now let's take up the nutrient cycles. Nutrient cycles are also called as biogeochemical cycles, where the term itself indicates that there are some chemicals which are cycling between the geo means earth and the environment, soil and the environment, and bio, the living organisms. So this cycling of the nutrient cycle keep the life going on this earth. So let's take up some of the important cycles. Carbon cycle is one. In carbon cycle, we understand from this that the plants take up the carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and they generate the food or carbohydrates by utilizing the sun's energy. They are able to uh, form the bonds between carbon, hydrogen, oxygen to generate the carbohydrates, as I told you. So the carbon is now fixed in the plants as the food, and that is consumed by the consumers, animals, directly or indirectly. And when the plants and animals die and their bodies are decomposed, these nutrients are again given back to the soil. And in the soil, we find that there are organic matter of dead plant and animal that is converted into the valuable nutrients by the action of the bacteria. And again, those nutrients are made available to the plants. And similarly, when the withering of the rocks takes place, bedrock that is deep under the soil, calcium is released and that's also used up by the plants. And some of the nutrients, though, they are lost into the deeper soil. And when the decomposition is going on, a lot of carbon dioxide is released by the decomposers, which goes back to the atmosphere. And even the plants and animals also, when they respire, carbon dioxide is given back to the atmosphere. So that's why it is called as carbon cycling. Carbon is found in the living organisms in the form of carbohydrates, proteins, fats, and the nucleic acids, etc. So this keeps cycling between the living organisms and non-living environment. Then let's take up the nitrogen cycle, which is another important cycle. Nitrogen is in the atmosphere. It is present as a free molecular nitrogen. Around 78.6% of the total gases in the atmosphere is the nitrogen only. Okay, but this nitrogen cannot be directly taken up by the plants. Plants also need nitrogen for their growth and development, for the production of the proteins, conversion of the carbohydrates into proteins. Nitrogen is needed there, and without nitrogen, even the plants cannot make the chlorophyll. So nitrogen is very important for growth and development of the producers. Now, how they obtain this nitrogen, let's see. Nitrogen in the form of the ammonia or urea will be there in the soil because by the way of excretion of the animal fecal matter and urea when it is entering into the soil, okay, so that contains the ammonium salts, and similarly when there is a lightening, right, atmospheric nitrogen also will be converted into the ammonia, and that is also washed down by the rainwater and it comes into the soil, and this ammonia will be converted by the nitrogen fixing bacteria, nitrifying bacteria we call. Nitrogen fixing bacteria are also there and nitrifying bacteria also there. Nitrogen fixing bacteria take up the atmospheric nitrogen and they convert it into the ammonia, and similarly the ammonia is generated when the decomposition of the proteins in the dead organic matter takes place. So this ammonia is further converted into nitrates and nitrites by the help of nitrifying bacteria. Nitrites and nitrates. Nitrites and nitrates are very important for the plants. So plants can take up the nitrogen in the form of the nitrate. So this we can call it as assimilation because it is being taken up by the plant body and utilized for growth and development. And denitrifying bacteria are also there in the soil, which again can convert the excess nitrates into free molecular nitrogen and oxygen. This is what called as denitrification. So in that way, again the nitrogen, free nitrogen is coming back to the atmosphere. So this is what called as nitrogen cycle, which is also a gaseous cycle. Now the another type of biogeochemical cycle is a sedimentary cycle where you don't find any gaseous form of that element. So that's called as the sedimentary cycle. Let's take up the phosphorus cycle as one of the example of sedimentary cycle. Phosphorus is again one of the important elements found in our body and in all the living organisms, whether plants, animals, or microorganisms. You know that DNA structure you might have studied in your biology classes in previous classes. You know that it is made up of the the nitrogenous bases, phosphates, and sugars, isn't it? Pentose sugars, phosphates, and nitrogen bases. So phosphates in the form of adenosine triphosphate in our body works as the source of immediate energy, chemical energy in our body, instant energy available to our muscles, to our other body parts for their functioning. Okay, so phosphates are very, very important for all the living organisms. So these phosphates are found in the soil in the form of the organic phosphorus, which may be in the form of the plant residues, that is dead parts of the plant body, in the humus, which is decomposing dead leaves of the plants with the help of the microbes which are there in the soil. And how this phosphate has reached the soil? It is from the animal manure and from the biosolids, the excreta and all, droppings of the birds contain a lot of phosphate, and human excreta also contain phosphate. So in that way, the phosphorus is reaching the soil, and then even from the dead and decomposing plant material, phosphates will be there in the soil. And these phosphates, the organic phosphorus which is there in the humus, in the plant residues, it all is converted into the phosphoric acid or soluble phosphate, and that process is called as mineralization with the help of the sulfur bacteria. Now these phosphates, the phosphate ions in the soil, they are taken up by the plant for their growth and development. Okay, and if these phosphates are again converted into organic phosphate, organic phosphorus, that is called as immobilization. Now this soluble phosphate or soluble form of the phosphorus in the soil, okay, that is again absorbed or taken up by clay, by the other elements in the soil like iron, aluminum oxide, and carbonates, etc., forming the mineral surfaces. That is, on the surface of the minerals, you find these phosphates. And similarly, by way of the precipitation, what happens is these phosphates, when they react with the calcium, iron, manganese, and aluminium, they form the secondary compound, calcium phosphate, iron phosphate, manganese phosphate in the soil. Okay, and if these get dissolved in the rainwater, when the rainwater percolates into the soil, these again dissolve into the water and may release by dissolution these phosphates back to the soil. Now, similarly, the mineral surfaces which contain the phosphates, they also will be taken up, which is called as the process of desorption. They get separated from these minerals and come back into the soil and available to the plant for their utilization. Okay, then even by way of the withering, the primary minerals which are there in the rocks, when the rocks and in the soil, they undergo withering, breaking, they also release the phosphate back into the soil. Similarly, by way of mineral fertilizers, which are used in agricultural fields, and by way of the rainwater, in the dissolved form, they percolate into the soil, and even from the atmospheric deposition, that is dust, from that dust when settled down and gets into the soil, we know that these phosphates are made available in the soil. And in all these ways, the phosphates will be available to the plants and they take up for their growth and development to make the nucleic acids, to carry out so many different metabolic processes for the plant respiration, photosynthesis, growth and development. Everywhere this phosphate is involved, and that's how the phosphorus cycle is taking place. And when these crops produce the food grains, and the fruits what we eat, they contain the phosphorus in the form of the organic phosphate in these plant products, and that we take up as we feed on these plants and plant products. So that is how we see that there is no gaseous form here of this element, so it is called a sedimentary cycle. Okay, that's all. We'll quickly go through these write-ups about the biogeochemical cycles and end up this part of the video. Nutrient cycle is a biogeochemical cycle in which organic nutrients move through soil, living organisms, and the atmosphere, air, and water. Cycling of nutrients keeps all living organisms on this earth perpetuating and living and existing continuously, and nutrient cycles also keep the ecosystems alive. Now, the next part we are going to discuss will be the role of producers, consumers, and decomposers in the ecosystem.